Glass shatters. The crowd erupts. A bald-headed Texas rattlesnake stomps his way down the ramp, eyes blazing with defiance, middle fingers in the air, and the entire wrestling world hanging on his every move. This is not just an entrance, it's a revolution. This is the story of a man who took the rule book, tore it to shreds, and redefined what it meant to be a superstar. This is the rise, fall, and legacy of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stephen James Anderson was born on December 18, 1964 in Austin, Texas. Later known to the world as Stone Cold Steve Austin, his early years were anything but glamorous. Raised primarily by his mother, after his parents split, Stephen learned independence quickly. His stepfather, Ken Williams, entered the picture when his mother remarried, and Stephen eventually took the surname Williams. Life in Edna, Texas, where he spent much of his youth, was small town and humble. Growing up with 4 siblings, he developed both toughness and a competitive streak from constant backyard scuffles. Money was tight, so Stephen found escape in sports, idolizing athletes who displayed grit and determination. Football became his first love, and it taught him about discipline, teamwork, and the grind required to succeed. He worked odd jobs during his teen years, from unloading trucks to sweeping floors, understanding the value of hard work, long before professional wrestling ever entered the picture. In high school, Stephen's athletic ability earned him recognition, and his focus on football grew sharper. His build, toughness, and relentless drive made him stand out, and he dreamed of making it big on the gridiron. After graduating, he attended Wharton County Junior College before transferring to the University of North Texas, where he played linebacker. Although he wasn't the biggest or fastest athlete, his determination was unmatched. Coaches admired his intensity, but his chances of breaking into professional football were slim. Despite this, the lessons learned on the field, mental toughness, physical endurance, and an all-or-nothing mentality would shape his wrestling persona years later. Football may not have carried him to fame, but it hardened him for the struggles waiting just ahead. After leaving college, Stephen faced uncertainty. He bounced between jobs and even briefly considered a normal career path, but deep down he wanted more. Around this time, he discovered professional wrestling on television. The colorful characters, the drama, the physicality, it all spoke to him. Then, fate intervened when he saw an advertisement for a wrestling school run by gentleman Chris Adams, a British star who had settled in Texas. Adams was known for his technical skills, and his school promised a path into the wrestling business. Intrigued, Stephen scraped together enough money to attend training sessions. It was grueling from day one. The conditioning drills were punishing, the bumps on the mat bruises, and Adams was a demanding teacher. Yet Stephen thrived under the pressure. He quickly showed natural ability, combining athleticism with a no-nonsense attitude. Even though Adams could be volatile, Stephen absorbed the fundamentals and understood he had found his calling. Training wasn't just about moves, it was about surviving. Many aspiring wrestlers quit within weeks, unable to handle the pain or sacrifice. Stephen refused to be one of them. He endured hours of drills, endless repetitions of suplexes, arm drags, and slams, determined to stand out. His dedication soon earned him his first bookings in the Dallas-based United States Wrestling Association, USWA, a regional promotion that had launched many careers. Wrestling under his real name, Stephen Williams, he quickly discovered a problem. Another wrestler already used that name. To avoid confusion, promoters suggested a change. Stephen James Anderson became Steve Austin, a name that at first didn't mean much, but would later become iconic. In those early matches, Austin wasn't flashy. He wore plain trunks, had a simple look, and focused on fundamentals. Crowds didn't know it then, but they were witnessing the first steps of a future superstar. Life on the independent circuit was brutally hard. Pay was low, sometimes just $20 a night, and wrestlers often had to cover their own travel expenses. Austin drove hundreds of miles between shows, sleeping in his car or cheap motels, eating fast food, and dreaming of stability. He worked construction jobs on the side to make ends meet, but his heart was always in wrestling. Nights in smoky arenas with a few hundred fans taught him resilience. He wrestled multiple times a week, sometimes twice in one night, facing opponents of all sizes and styles. The ring became his classroom, and every match sharpened his craft. He developed a grounded, technical style. influenced heavily by Chris Adams, but also molded by the rough and tumble nature of Texas wrestling. Promoters noticed his reliability and toughness, and slowly his reputation began to grow. In the USWA, Austin began to find his footing. While he wasn't an immediate star, he stood out for his intensity and drive. He studied established wrestlers backstage, asking questions, observing how they carried themselves, and taking mental notes. He learned how to connect with fans, even in small venues, understanding that emotion and storytelling mattered just as much as physical moves. Early rivalries gave him opportunities to test himself, and each one built his confidence. Behind the scenes, however, he struggled financially and emotionally. Friends doubted whether he could ever make a living in wrestling. But Austin refused to quit. He had endured too much training, too many bumps, and too many miles to walk away now. What Austin lacked in money and fame, he made up for with determination. His relentless schedule toughened his body and mind. Every night in the ring was another chance to improve, and every setback was fuel for his hunger. It was in these small arenas of Texas and Memphis where he forged the foundation of the character that would later take over the world. He wasn't yet stone cold, but the fire, toughness, and stubborn willpower were already there. Wrestling wasn't just a career choice anymore. It was his life, and he was prepared to sacrifice everything to climb higher. The long road to superstardom had begun, and even though few could see it, Steve Austin was destined for greatness. After paying his dues in the USWA, Steve Austin's hard work caught the attention of larger promotions. His growing reputation for being a tough, reliable worker led to an opportunity with World Championship Wrestling, better known as WCW. Signing with WCW in 1991 was a massive step forward. For the first time, Austin had a real contract, steady income, and national television exposure. He debuted as Stunning Steve Austin, complete with bleach blonde hair and flashy ring gear. The presentation was very different from the no-nonsense figure he would later become, but it fit the early 90s WCW style, which still leaned on colorful characters. As Stunning Steve, he was positioned as a young, promising heel. Fans didn't yet see the rebellious anti-hero he would become, but they saw a technically skilled wrestler who oozed confidence. Austin's first big break in WCW came when he was paired with manager Lady Blossom Jeannie Clark, who happened to be his girlfriend at the time. With Clark at his side, Austin gained extra heat from the crowd, and the pairing helped establish him as a rising villain. He quickly found success, winning the WCW Television Championship from Bobby Eaton just months into his run. Holding gold in WCW validated his decision to keep pushing through the tough years, and it showed that promoters believed in his potential. Austin defended the title against veterans like Barry Windham and Ricky Steamboat, proving he could hang with top-level talent. His work ethic was undeniable, and his in-ring skills continued to sharpen under the spotlight of national TV. But Austin's career truly began to take shape when he was teamed with Brian Pillman to form the Hollywood Blondes. What began as a thrown-together tag team in 1993 evolved into one of the most entertaining duos of the era. Austin and Pillman had instant chemistry, both in the ring and on the microphone. They played arrogant, cocky stars who mocked their opponents and flaunted their Hollywood lifestyle, even though neither had real Hollywood ties. Their antics were hilarious and infuriating, and they became one of the hottest acts in WCW. Together, the Hollywood Blondes captured the WCW World Tag Team Championships, delivering standout matches against the likes of Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. For Austin, this partnership was crucial. It gave him valuable experience in character work and microphone skills, areas where he would later excel. Despite the team's success, WCW management didn't fully appreciate the potential of the Hollywood Blondes. After less than a year, the duo was split apart, leaving Austin frustrated. While he was still booked in mid-card feuds, he felt held back creatively. Nevertheless, he kept delivering strong performances, whether in singles matches or tag bouts. His technical foundation and growing charisma made him stand out, but backstage politics in WCW often dictated who rose to the top. Austin wasn't part of the in-crowd, and it became clear that the company didn't see him as a future main eventer. This disconnect between his ability and his push planted seeds of frustration that would later fuel his persona. Adding to his struggles, Austin suffered a serious setback in 1994 when he tore his triceps during a tour of Japan. The injury sidelined him for months, halting his momentum at a critical time. For a wrestler trying to prove himself, time away from the ring was devastating. WCW initially kept him under contract, but company politics soon reared their head again. Eric Bischoff, then running WCW, ultimately decided Austin didn't have the charisma or marketability to be a top star. While Austin was still recovering, Bischoff fired him over the phone in 1995. To Austin, it was a humiliating dismissal, and he felt discarded by the company he had given his all to. He later described this moment as one of the lowest points of his career. WCW had slammed the door in his face, and he wondered if his wrestling dreams were over. But just when things seemed darkest, fate intervened. Paul Heyman, the mastermind behind Extreme Championship Wrestling, ECW, saw an opportunity. He knew Austin had untapped potential and offered him a spot in ECW. Unlike WCW, ECW was raw, edgy, and unpredictable, giving wrestlers more creative freedom. Austin, still recovering from injury, couldn't wrestle full matches immediately, but Heyman encouraged him to cut promos and showcase his personality. These promos became legendary. With his long blonde hair gone and his bitterness boiling over, Austin unleashed verbal tirades against WCW, Bischoff, and even Hulk Hogan. He vented real-life frustrations through the microphone, and fans responded to the authenticity. In ECW, Steve Austin found his voice. During his short stint in ECW, Austin began to experiment with the sarcastic, cynical, and rebellious persona that would later define him. His parody promos, where he mocked Hogan or played exaggerated characters, revealed a comedic side no one expected. More importantly, they revealed his ability to connect with fans by speaking his truth. He also began to develop the physical intensity and sharp wit that would make him unforgettable in WWF. While his time in ECW was brief, it was transformative. Heyman gave him the freedom to be himself, to tap into his frustrations, and to let his natural charisma shine. The ECW audience, known for being brutally honest, embraced him, and Austin walked away with a clearer sense of who he was meant to be in wrestling. Looking back, Austin often credited ECW as the turning point of his career. Though he didn't have many matches there, the creative freedom gave him the confidence to push boundaries. It was the place where Steve Austin stopped being stunning and started becoming something far more dangerous. The bitterness from WCW's rejection fueled his hunger, and the raw, unscripted environment of ECW sharpened his edge. With new fire in his heart and a fresh sense of identity, Austin was ready for his next opportunity. That opportunity came in late 1995 when the World Wrestling Federation came calling. Though he didn't know it yet, his arrival in WWF would change the wrestling industry forever. When Steve Austin joined the World Wrestling Federation in late 1995, he didn't arrive as the larger-than-life Stone Cold that fans remember. Instead, he was given the ring name The Ringmaster and paired with Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. DiBiase presented Austin as his new protege, handing him the $1 Million Championship belt to signify their alliance. While the partnership was designed to give Austin instant credibility, the Ringmaster gimmick was bland and uninspired. Austin himself later admitted he hated the character. The slicked-back hair, generic tights, and reliance on DiBiase's promos made him feel like just another cog in the machine. Fans didn't connect with the persona, and Austin knew if something didn't change, his WWF run would end before it ever truly began. Behind the scenes, Austin pushed for more creative control. He had tasted freedom in ECW and knew he could deliver more if given the chance. After DiBiase left WWF for WCW in mid-1996, Austin was finally given an opportunity to reinvent himself. He shaved his head, grew a goatee, and embraced a colder, meaner persona. The inspiration came from watching a documentary about a ruthless killer nicknamed the Iceman. Austin wanted something similar, a character who was cold, calculating, and remorseless. His then-wife suggested the name Stone Cold, and it stuck. With the new look, the new attitude, Steve Austin was reborn. The transformation clicked instantly. Austin ditched the cartoonish aspects of pro wrestling and presented himself as a no-nonsense, beer-drinking brawler who didn't care about pleasing the crowd or management. He was tough, direct, and brutally honest, qualities that resonated with fans tired of the over-the-top characters dominating the mid-90s. The timing was perfect. Wrestling was about to shift into a grittier, edgier phase, and Stone Cold was the spark that lit the fire. His big breakout moment came at the 1996 King of the Ring tournament. After defeating Jake the Snake Roberts in the finals, Austin delivered one of the most iconic promos in wrestling history. Looking directly into the camera, he mocked Roberts' religious-themed character by saying, "You sit there and you thump your Bible and you say your prayers, and it didn't get you anywhere. Talk about your Psalms. Talk about John 3:16.
Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass."
The crowd erupted, and Austin 3:16 was born. Within weeks, signs with the phrase began appearing at every WWF show. Merchandise flew off the shelves, and the catchphrase became a cultural phenomenon. That single promo elevated Austin from mid-card afterthought to main event prospect almost overnight. But a catchphrase alone doesn't make a superstar. Austin backed up his words with hard-hitting performances in the ring. His aggressive brawling style stood out against the more technical or gimmick-heavy wrestlers of the time. He wasn't flashy. He fought like a man who wanted to beat his opponent down and move on to the next fight. Fans believed in him because he felt authentic. When Stone Cold stomped a mud hole in someone and walked it dry, it wasn't an act. It was raw intensity spilling out of a man who had been overlooked for too long. The next step in Austin's rise came with his feud against Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret was one of the most respected and technically skilled wrestlers in the world, known for his professionalism and his status as a locker room leader. Their feud began in late 1996 when Austin began calling out Bret for being past his prime and afraid to face him. Bret eventually returned to accept the challenge, and what followed was one of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history. Their contrasting styles, Bret's technical precision against Austin's relentless brawling, created magic in the ring. The feud reached its peak at WrestleMania 13 in 1997, where they faced off in a submission match with UFC fighter Ken Shamrock as special referee. The match is widely regarded as one of the greatest in wrestling history, not just for the in-ring action, but for the double turn that took place. Austin entered as the villain, while Bret was the beloved hero. Throughout the match, Bret targeted Austin's injured knee, methodically wearing him down. Austin, however, refused to quit. Blood poured down his face after a brutal shot, but he continued to fight, screaming in pain, yet refusing to submit. In the closing moments, Bret locked Austin in the sharpshooter. Austin, trapped and covered in blood, tried to power out, but eventually passed out from the pain rather than give up. Shamrock called for the bell, awarding the match to Bret. The visual of a bloodied Austin refusing to surrender became legendary. In that moment, fans' perception shifted. Bret Hart, frustrated and aggressive, came off as bitter and ruthless, while Austin, who showed unbelievable toughness and defiance, became the anti-hero fans admired. The double turn was executed to perfection. Bret left the ring as a heel, and Austin walked out as the toughest son of a bitch in the business. That match solidified Stone Cold as a main event star and cemented his reputation as a man who would fight until he had nothing left. The Bret Hart feud also established Austin's role as a symbol of rebellion. He wasn't the clean-cut hero or the villainous coward. He was something new, a defiant figure who played by his own rules. Fans related to his disdain for authority and his refusal to back down, traits that reflected the cultural shift of the late 90s. Society was embracing grunge, anti-establishment attitudes, and edgier entertainment. Stone Cold fit perfectly into that atmosphere. Coming out of WrestleMania 13, Austin's momentum was unstoppable. Every week, his promos grew sharper, his character more defined, and his connection with the audience deeper. Austin 3:16 shirts filled arenas, and the crowd erupted whenever his glass-shattering entrance theme hit. Vince McMahon and the WWF had no choice but to recognize they had something special. Stone Cold Steve Austin was no longer just a promising talent, he was becoming the face of a movement that would change wrestling forever. By 1997, Stone Cold Steve Austin had become the most captivating star in wrestling. The intensity of his feud with Bret Hart turned him into an anti-hero unlike anything WWF had ever seen. But Austin's true explosion into superstardom came with his legendary rivalry against Vince McMahon, a storyline that became the very heart of the Attitude Era. The seeds were planted when Austin's rebellious attitude clashed with WWF authority. McMahon, originally seen only as a commentator, was revealed to the audience as the company's real owner and boss. The corporate image of Vince made him the perfect foil to Austin's blue-collar, beer-drinking persona. Fans who worked 9-to-5 jobs, hated their bosses, and lived paycheck to paycheck saw Austin living their fantasy of punching authority in the mouth every Monday night. The feud officially began in late 1997 when McMahon tried to mold Austin into a more respectable champion, something Austin wanted no part of. Week after week, Austin defied McMahon's orders, stunning anyone who got in his way, including Vince himself. The image of Stone Cold Steve Austin delivering the Stone Cold Stunner to McMahon on live TV electrified the audience. It was shocking, rebellious, and completely fresh. Fans lived for those moments, and ratings began to skyrocket as more and more people tuned in to watch Austin's weekly war against his tyrannical boss. This feud was a cultural phenomenon. Every time McMahon schemed to stack the deck against Austin, the Texas Rattlesnake found a way to fight back. Whether it was filling McMahon's Corvette with cement, driving a Zamboni to the ring, or arriving in a beer truck to spray the corporation with suds, Austin embodied unpredictability. No one knew what he would do next, and that unpredictability kept fans glued to the screen. The Austin versus McMahon rivalry became the cornerstone of the Attitude Era, directly fueling WWF's resurgence during the Monday Night Wars with WCW. Austin's feud with McMahon wasn't his only highlight. He also developed legendary rivalries with some of the biggest stars in the business. His trilogy with The Rock is often considered one of the greatest rivalries in wrestling history. Both men represented different archetypes of the Attitude Era. Austin was the blue-collar rebel, while The Rock was the flashy, arrogant corporate star. Their verbal exchanges were electric, filled with charisma and intensity. Inside the ring, their chemistry was undeniable, and together they created some of the most memorable main events in WrestleMania history. Their first major clash took place at WrestleMania 15 in 1999, where Austin defeated The Rock to reclaim the WWF Championship. That match marked the beginning of a rivalry that would define a generation. 2 years later, at WrestleMania X7 in Houston, Austin and The Rock squared off again in what many consider the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. The match was brutal, emotional, and filled with drama. In the end, Austin shocked the world by aligning himself with Vince McMahon, shaking hands with the very man he had spent years fighting against. The decision was controversial and polarizing, but it added a new layer to his character. Their final chapter came at WrestleMania 19 in 2003, where The Rock finally defeated Austin, marking the end of their trilogy and Austin's last official match before retirement. Beyond The Rock, Austin's wars with The Undertaker also stood out. Their matches often headlined pay-per-views, with both men representing unstoppable forces of different kinds. Undertaker brought an aura of darkness and mystique, while Austin countered with raw intensity and defiance. Their clash at SummerSlam 1998, where Austin defended the WWF Championship, was a highlight of their rivalry. The match symbolized the collision of two icons at their peak. Even when Austin suffered injuries, his chemistry with The Undertaker kept fans invested in their battles. But Austin's relentless schedule and physical style began to take a toll on his body. In 1997, during a match at SummerSlam against Owen Hart, Austin suffered a devastating neck injury when Hart botched a pile driver. Austin's head was driven directly into the mat, compressing his spine and leaving him temporarily paralyzed. Though he managed to finish the match with a weak roll-up, the injury was career-threatening. Doctors warned him that continuing to wrestle could lead to permanent damage. For months, Austin was limited in the ring, relying more on brawls and short bursts of action rather than traditional wrestling moves. Despite the limitations, his character work and charisma kept him at the top of the card. Austin eventually underwent spinal surgery in 1999, which allowed him to continue wrestling but never fully removed the risks. The wear and tear on his body grew with each passing year. By the early 2000s, repeated knee injuries and lingering neck issues made it harder for him to perform at the level he expected of himself. Still, Austin refused to back down. He continued to headline events, delivering unforgettable matches and moments that kept his legacy growing. His ability to connect with the audience remained unmatched. Every time the glass shattered and his theme music hit, the arena exploded in cheers. Austin's character had transcended wrestling. He became a cultural icon. His t-shirts, catchphrases, and rebellious spirit made him a household name, even for people who didn't regularly watch wrestling. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a symbol of defiance, toughness, and unapologetic individuality. By the height of the Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin had become the face of WWF. He was the driving force behind its dominance over WCW, pulling in massive ratings and selling millions in merchandise. Alongside The Rock, Mick Foley, The Undertaker, and Triple H, Austin helped create an era that wrestling fans still revere as the greatest period in sports entertainment history. But behind the scenes, his body was wearing down, and the years of punishment were beginning to catch up with him. The question wasn't if Austin could keep going. It was how much longer he could endure the physical toll of his legendary career. By 2002, Stone Cold Steve Austin was at a crossroads. Years of punishment had finally caught up to him, and though his spirit remained unbreakable, his body told a different story. The neck injury he sustained in 1997, combined with multiple knee surgeries, had left him vulnerable. Doctors warned that continuing to wrestle full-time was a gamble with his health. Austin, ever the fighter, pushed forward as long as he could. But by 2003, the decision was clear. His days inside the ring as an active competitor were over. Austin's final official match came at WrestleMania Night 19 in Seattle, Washington. In a fitting conclusion to one of the greatest rivalries in wrestling, Austin squared off against The Rock for the third time at the Showcase of the Immortals. The build-up to the match carried an air of finality, though fans didn't realize it would be Austin's last bout. The two icons delivered a classic encounter, with The Rock finally securing a victory over his greatest rival. After the match, Austin remained in the ring for a few extra moments, soaking in the energy of the crowd. While he didn't formally announce his retirement that night, the emotion on his face told the story. It was the end of an era. After stepping away from active competition, Austin transitioned into new roles within WWE and beyond. He appeared sporadically on television, usually delivering stunners to unlucky superstars or making surprise returns to ignite massive crowd reactions. His presence always generated electricity, reminding fans of the chaos and unpredictability he had brought during the Attitude Era. WWE continued to honor Austin as one of its all-time greats, and his image remained central to the company's branding. In 2009, Austin received the ultimate recognition for his contributions to the business when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. The induction ceremony held in Houston, Texas, was a celebration of his legacy. Fellow wrestlers and fans alike paid tribute to the man who had defined a generation. Austin's speech was heartfelt, filled with gratitude for the fans who had supported him throughout his career. He ended the night in classic Stone Cold fashion, drinking beers and sharing one last toast with the audience that had made him a legend. Outside of wrestling, Austin explored new ventures. He appeared in movies such as The Longest Yard alongside Adam Sandler, The Condemned, and several action films that highlighted his tough guy persona. While he never reached the box office dominance of someone like The Rock, Austin carved out a niche as a reliable action star with a rugged authenticity that fans appreciated. His transition from the ring to Hollywood was natural. The same intensity that made him a captivating wrestler translated well to the big screen. But perhaps his most impactful post-wrestling venture came in the form of podcasting and reality television. In 2013, Austin launched The Steve Austin Show, a podcast where he interviewed fellow wrestlers, athletes, and entertainers. His candid style, combined with decades of experience, made him a natural host. Listeners loved his straightforward approach and the way he peeled back the curtain on the wrestling world. The podcast gave Austin a new platform to connect with fans and allowed him to showcase his personality in a more intimate setting. Austin also hosted reality TV shows like Redneck Island and Broken Skull Challenge, further cementing his brand as the tough, no-nonsense Texan who thrived in competitive environments. These ventures allowed him to reach new audiences who might not have been familiar with his wrestling career. Whether on television, podcasts, or the occasional WWE appearance, Austin continued to reinvent himself while staying true to the persona that had made him famous. Throughout his post-wrestling career, Austin remained a beloved figure in the wrestling community. His occasional returns to WWE television were treated as major events, and every time the glass shattered, fans erupted with the same passion as they had in the late 1990s. At WrestleMania XXX in 2014, Austin joined The Rock and Hulk Hogan in an opening segment that celebrated the history of wrestling's biggest stars. It was a reminder of how integral Austin had been to WWE's golden years. Then, in 2022, nearly 2 decades after his retirement, Austin shocked the wrestling world by stepping back into the ring at WrestleMania 38. In the main event of Night 1, he faced Kevin Owens in a no-holds-barred match. Despite being 57 years old, Austin delivered a performance that exceeded expectations. He brawled through the crowd, took bumps on the floor, and even delivered his iconic Stone Cold Stunner to close the show. Fans erupted with joy, Stunner thrilled to see their hero one last time. It was a full-circle moment, a chance for Austin to say goodbye on his own terms. As time has passed, Austin's legacy has only grown. He is universally recognized as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. His impact on the business is immeasurable. Without Austin, there may not have been an Attitude Era. Without the Attitude Era, WWF may not have survived the Monday Night Wars against WCW. Austin didn't just thrive in that period, he defined it. His rebellion against Vince McMahon, his battles with The Rock, his sheer charisma, all of it combined to create a phenomenon that transcended wrestling. Beyond the championships and accolades, Austin's influence is seen in the countless wrestlers who followed in his footsteps, superstars who embraced anti-hero personas, who broke the mold of traditional good guys, all owe a debt to Stone Cold. His willingness to blur the lines between hero and villain changed the way wrestling characters were written. Fans didn't just cheer for Austin because he was good. They cheered because he was real. He embodied the frustrations and desires of the working class, giving them a voice in an era where rebellion resonated deeply. Today, Austin lives a quieter life, often at his Broken Skull Ranch in Nevada. He remains active through his media projects and occasional WWE appearances, but his focus has shifted toward enjoying life outside the chaos of wrestling. Fans still chant his name, still wear his shirts, and still celebrate every time his entrance music hits. Few athletes in any sport have achieved that kind of timeless loyalty. Stone Cold Steve Austin's story is one of resilience, rebellion, and reinvention. From a young man struggling to find his path in Texas, to a global superstar who carried WWE on his back, to a respected legend who continues to inspire, his journey is unmatched. His rise, his battles, his setbacks, and his ultimate triumphs all paint the picture of a man who refused to be ordinary. Austin's legacy isn't just about what he did in the ring, it's about how he made people feel. And for millions of fans, that feeling will never fade.